Was Cassie under a spell in her relationship with Diddy? How do we discern between true love and attachment? And lastly, what do you do when you've been in a toxic, unhealthy, abusive relationship? How do you heal from that? How do you overcome that? Okay. First, we're going to talk about, was Cassie under a spell? Was she being mind controlled, manipulated, and um, just in a mental space where she could not move out of this situation that she had found herself in with Diddy? Here's my perspective. Cassie was indeed under a spell, and she was under the spell of adultery, okay, which is the worship of false gods. It's the unconscious belief that a certain experience, item, or person has more value than the God within. This happens, y'all, when we've spent what seems like a lifetime yearning to fill this endless void and need for love, acknowledgement, abundance, etc. It is our insatiable desire to feel whole that blinds us to the deviancy of reality. It is so easy to idolize a person, a reality, an experience when you've yearned so long to have a certain thing, to be a certain thing, to experience a certain thing. Okay? It blinds us when we have these voids, these holes within our beings. It blinds us from seeing what a situation really is. And so I believe that is a part of what happened with Cassie. I believe that is what drew her initially into the relationship with Diddy. And the reality is that when we are idolizing this false god, when we don't recognize or realize our own intrinsic value as we are for who we are, okay? We will not see how demonic, low vibrational, treacherous a certain experience may be. Okay. They say Cassie was 19 years old when she got into a relationship with Diddy. And I reflect back on when I was 19. I was in college, and you know who my idol was at the time? My idol at my time at 19 when I was in college was attention. I idolized attention. I craved attention. I needed to be seen. I needed to be heard. I needed to be felt. I needed to be recognized, y'all. And I remember I was dating this guy. We're going to call him B, right? We're going to call him B. I was dating this guy named B, and he appeared to be just like the best thing. He was handsome. He was smart. He was a Kappa in college, so his little shoulder shimmy was like pristine, right? He was, community centered. He was goal oriented. He appeared to be like this perfect guy, right? And he was given attention. So he had a certain level of value. He had a certain level of popularity on the college campus. And so when he starts to try to holler at your girl, right, I'm like falling all for it, right? So yes, he was handsome. Yes, he was, a Kappa. Yes, he had this popularity, et cetera, et cetera. But he was always also manipulative. He was a liar. He was a gaslighter. He was literally all of these things, right? I vividly remember one day we would be together, hanging out, kicking it, enjoying each other's company. And like the next day, he would just like disappear. I'm like, my guy, like, We were just talking like we go together. And now I don't hear a thing from you, or I reach out to you, I text you, and you don't respond. Like, what's up with that? He was emotionally abusive. He was mentally abusive. But because I idolized attention, right? I was not able to see the deviancy in this guy's behavior. I wasn't able to see the manipulation that he was. And so to me, Cassie, just based off of what I know about her so far, is that she grew up with a single mother. You know what I mean? She grew up in like a small town type area, not having a lot of money or abundance. And so when you grow up like that, you're going to idolize money, right? You're going to idolize popularity. You're going to want to be seen. You're going to want to be heard. You're going to want to, feel like you are somebody if you're coming from a place where you are nobody in a sense. Okay. And so this causes a spell to be casted over our minds and over our beings. When we have this void that we've probably had since we were a child, right? So my idolization of attention and relationship came from having the void of abandonment. It came from my father not being around, not giving me that attention, not telling me that I'm beautiful, not telling me that I'm worthy. So not receiving that created this emptiness and this deep desire to have that. And so because I wanted that, because that became the thing that would make me feel whole, even though it's an illusion, because I thought that would make me feel whole, I blindly went out looking for that and would ignore all the signs of deviancy, of low vibration, of toxicity. I would ignore it unconsciously, though. Okay. So we want to understand that when we find ourselves in situations like this, right? When we observe people who are in situations like this, we have to have compassion and understanding, because the reality is that there was something inside of them that was needing a void to be filled. Okay? And because we have that deep desire, we will turn a blind eye to things that we know is not right. Okay? So that happens. And the reality is that people like Diddy, right? People like Diddy, abusers, right? First of all, we have to know and understand that from even watching Diddy's apology, which I'm going to show y'all here today, I can tell that Diddy literally, his moral compass is off, right? It's not in alignment. So people like this subconsciously and unconsciously seek out people who have this emptiness that is needing to be filled, right? It's like a moth to a flame, right? The what you did not receive, the inadequacy, is a fire that somebody that got money, that wants to manipulate, that wants to use and abuse, oh, they're sniffing that out. They're like, okay, she didn't grow up with having money. I could use her for my, sadistic desires. So this is why it is so important for us to first acknowledge, okay, acknowledge that we're doing the best that we can with what we have. But secondly, we have to have awareness of the things that make us feel empty, our wounds and our wants. When we have awareness of our wounds and our wants, nobody can really manipulate us. We go into situations consciously understanding what it is we are desiring to take away from it. Okay. So the next thing that I was thinking about in terms of Diddy and Cassie and their whole situation, that I feel like is important for us all to know and understand is this question right here: how to discern true love from attachment. How do we discern true love from attachment? Discernment is a gift of the Spirit. It's the ability to know and decide what is true and right over what is false and wrong. This requires a commitment to hearing the voice of God and applying the wisdom. Okay? So, discernment is something that we receive through our life experience, right? It's being able to, and it's not about just knowing what is right and what is true, it's about choosing that thing. How many of us have ever been in a situation to where you know something ain't right? You know it ain't no good, right? But there's something inside of you that still craves that thing, or there's something inside of you that will ignore your discernment, that would totally blow off what the divine has actually revealed to you. Okay? That's what be happening. Because you have this deep desire, you will ignore what spirit has shown you. Okay? So discernment is about not only knowing it, but applying it as well. Now, when we look at true love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. That's so good. If a person is not willing to extend themselves for your spiritual growth, for your spiritual expansion, or for their own, it's not true love. It can't be true love, okay? Because love is as love does: care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust, as well as honest and open communication in action is love. If a person is just talking about how much they love you, they care about you, they respect you, they recognize you, but their actions don't align with that, it's not true love, right? That's not what's happening. In fact, it is what I call attachment, okay? Any abuse not reconciled after attention has been drawn to it is attachment, okay? So, I grew up, y'all, in very abusive environments, which I'll say this: pray for those kids, right? Diddy's children, right? I don't think Cassie didn't have children at the time, but Diddy's children. And if he was doing that with Cassie, more than likely he was also doing these behaviors with Kim Porter and with any other women that he had around. Pray for the children. Wish the children well, because children that observe domestic violence also go through a lot of trauma, right? And that was my experience, y'all. I saw my mom in multiple domestic violence relationships, right? And it started actually with my father. Her and my father would go back and forth, would have this tit for tat. They would be, just aggressive towards one another. Okay. They would just be harsh. I'm doing a video, sir. The kids are out of school and KJ literally just walked in here like, what you doing? Like, what, sir? So I grew up in environments seeing my mother fight, right? Like this was a normal thing. And what was so crazy, I remember we were living in some apartments. These apartments were called Williamstown. If you in Houston, you probably know this area off of Bissonnette and Beltway 8, the straight up hood, Williamstown. And I remember us living in these apartments, and I would be in my room. We had a 2-bedroom apartment. And I would be in the room. Me and my brothers, we would be kicking it, whatever, chilling, playing games, tic-tac-toe, checkers, Candyland. We would be doing things like that. And I remember coming out of the bedroom and my mom would be watching What's Love Got to Do with It? And in my mind, I'm like, Mom, why are you watching abuse? We are already experiencing that. Isn't that so crazy? My mother was already in abusive relationships, but she'll be watching Ike and Tina. So I'm like getting like double traumatized because I'm living in an abusive environment. And then my mom seems to always be watching Ike and Tina and anime and all of that. Y'all tell me, was What's Love Got to Do with it traumatic for y'all? Because, baby, it was traumatic for me. Okay. It was traumatic for me watching What's Love Got to Do with It, because not only because the image that they were projecting, which is why I did not like the fact that they blasted the video of Diddy and his abuse towards Cassie, because it really just reverberated around the entire planet, especially for a lot of Black women here in America. It just, in all women, right? But it really just radiated this energy that we've seen time and time again. Okay. And so I would have liked for that to be concealed, but I guess when you're slaying demons, you got to make them be known, which I would say that is a very big deal. These spiritual deviant energies will continue to roam recklessly until they have been made known. Okay? So I get why the divine allowed for this image to be presented, because we have to see it. It's like a lot of people grow up with this notion of seeing is believing, right? Like you have to see it in order for you to believe that it actually exists, right? And so I get why it had to be put out there, but it just made me feel like I was watching What's Love Got to Do with It again, which reminded me of my own childhood experiences. And it goes back to what I realized happened with my mother, right? I feel that a part of why my mother really attracted these relationships is because, like I said earlier, she had this deep void. And so I remember my mom is just beautiful. She's vibrant, she's strong, she's a Leo, she's really a goddess, right? When she walks in a room, she commands attention. But this light that she has is so vibrant that so many people are always wanting it. I remember we were living in the hood because, a lot of times single mothers that have, very, minimum wage paying jobs, more than likely they're going to live in an impoverished neighborhood, right? So we lived in the hood off this street in Houston called Club Creek. And one Saturday morning, my mom had took me and my brothers to the gas station. And this gas station is like run down, ran by like an Indian, and it's just like just old, dilapidated gas station. So we go in this gas station and we're grabbing some snacks because my mom, though she barely had it, she always made a way for us to have snacks and for us to have the things that we wanted. So we're in this gas station and we're grabbing snacks, and this African man, he comes up like he's a knight in shining armor. He's like, "Oh, let me take care of that." He buys all the snacks, right? He buys all the snacks for us, and of course, he asks for my mom's number. She gives him her number, and they start to connect. Before you know it, this guy is coming over to our apartment, right? That same apartment that I just told y'all about, Williamstown, where I used to see my mama watching uh I don't know why I want to say Love and Hip Hop. That's how you know Love and Hip Hop is just hood as hell, okay? Love and Hip Hop is also displaying abuse. Stop watching it if you watch it, right? But that same apartment where we were watching What's Love Got to Do with It. So before you know it, this guy, his name was Mr. Calvin. I'm going to put his name out there, right? His name is Mr. Calvin. And he's coming over to our house and he's bringing food and he's bringing snacks and he's doing all of these things. Well, at some point in the relationship, something switches, something shifts. And I guess my mom was just like, I'm done with you, right? She's over it. Y'all had y'all fun. She ready to move on. He's an African Nigerian man. And I guess in his mind, he's like, I done spent too much money on these kids. I done already did the most. I ain't going nowhere. You're mine. On Christmas Eve, this man locks us, holds us hostage in this apartment. Luckily, the way that we got rescued, luckily, when you live in the hood, like Christmas is cool, but it's not really that big of a deal because some of your friends ain't getting no gifts. And so my big brother had a friend over. His name was Dominique. Rest in peace, Dominique. He passed away a few years ago. My big brother had a friend over named Dominique. Dominique was spending the night at our house on Christmas Eve because, like I said, my mama was going to get us something, right? We were going to have something. And so Dominique's at our house, and this guy is now growing crazy, right? He's mad. He's frustrated because my mom wants to break up with him. So he comes to the house. He locks us in the house. He's so crazy. He climbs our patio. He climbs up to the second floor to get into our house. We lived on the second floor of the apartment. He climbed the gate, climbed over our patio, and that's how he got into our house. So he's there, Dominique's there, and they're arguing, they're fussing, they're fighting. And he lets Dominique go because he like, oh, Dominique don't need to be here seeing this violence that is taking place. These kids, your 3 kids, single mother, they can see me abuse you, fight you, tie you up. This man literally took the phone cord out of the wall and tied up my mother's arms, literally. So he let Dominique go. And my mother kind of whispered to Dominique before he left, like, call the police. So Dominique leaves, he calls the police. And things are the hood, living in that environment is so crazy because he called the police, I want to say at 10 o'clock at night. They did not make it to us till like 6 o'clock in the morning, literally. So from 12 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning, we're fighting. We're fighting this man. We couldn't even, me and my 2 brothers, we didn't even sleep that night. This man brought the mattress out of my mother's bedroom, brought the mattress out of her bedroom, put it on the floor, made us lay on that mattress on the floor. None of us could be in the room. We all had to be in the living room while he contemplated what he wanted to do. Okay. So that's why I say pray for the kids who have to observe and be around domestic violence, because it did do something that changed something in my brothers and I. But what I realized, the thing that had attached my mother to that type of person was she never had a provider in her life. When my mother was a kid, she had to grow up fast. Her dad was an alcoholic. Her mother was getting paid like $3 an hour. Like, this is how crazy it was at that time. Her dad was an alcoholic. Her mother was barely making enough money to get by. So my mother, being the oldest female, the oldest girl of that household, she had to go out and get it early. And she had this belief system that the only way that she was going to keep a man, the only way that a man was going to be in her life was if he was a provider. If a man did not have no bag, if he couldn't provide financially for her and her kids, he had to go. So right when a man displayed the ability to afford us and her and our life, it was like she became blinded to his deviancy. She became blinded to his negativity. She became blinded to the spirit that embodied him, that sought to control, that sought to abuse, and that sought to exert a certain level of force. Okay? And so I have been graced with the ability to take a step back and recognize that energy, right? And understand what that is. Same thing with Ike and Tina on what's love got to do with it. Tina wanted to be that Anna Mae, before she came Tina Turner. Anna Mae wanted to be that singer. She wanted to be that star. She knew she had a gift since she was singing in the church, "This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine." And then Ike Turner, he ends up being the gateway into that. And that's why when it comes down to abuse, it's so important for us to recognize what our deep wounds and what our deep wants are. Because if we know those things, we can be proactive in how we relate to other people. Because let me tell you, abuse is not just what we see physically. What we observe Diddy do is not the only form of abuse. You have mental abuse, where people gaslight you and make you feel like how you are seeing and perceiving the world is not right. You have emotional abuse, where you have feelings about certain things and you know that something makes you feel bad, it doesn't make you feel good, and somebody invalidates that. They tell you you're wrong for feeling how you feel, right? There are multiple forms. You have financial abuse, women who are being abused by their husbands. Their husbands, aren't letting them get the necessities that they need for their lives, or their husbands are taking all of their money. Financial abuse can also be showing up at that job. You working all of these extra hours and not getting paid no overtime, right? You are overly qualified to do this job, but you're still being paid the base salary or the base hourly rate for that job. These are all forms. These are all forms of abuse. And if we can recognize, okay, this is what my wound is, and this is what I deeply desire to experience. If we can recognize that, we can see how a certain type of person would be attracted to us based off of those things. And when we have that realization, when we have that understanding, we can seek to feel that using our own divine will and divine guidance. Okay? And don't get it twisted, right? Sometimes people are unconsciously abusive just because they don't know how their traumas have impacted them, right? They're not doing it on purpose. But you will know that a relationship is an attachment if you draw attention to a form of abuse, whether it's verbal, emotional, physical, obviously is obvious, right? Mental, emotional. When you draw attention to something and they don't try to change that, whether it is your boss, your mother, your friend, your partner, that's an attachment, right? And I wrote down why that happens because I want y'all to be able to really see. Okay. Unhealthy attachment is an unconscious desire to exploit unhealed trauma. Okay. An unhealthy attachment is an unconscious desire to exploit unhealed trauma. So, taking Diddy and Cassie, it's an unhealthy attachment because Diddy exploited the fact that Cassie grew up needing that masculine attention. Cassie grew up needing financial freedom, financial security. And so that need is exploited by him abusing her over and over and over and over again, and her staying around. Now here's the thing. I experienced this, y'all, as the child of someone who was in multiple domestic violence situations. Okay. My mother had got remarried. She got remarried. I want to say I was maybe in fourth grade. My mother had got remarried. And this guy, I'm going to call him Mr. G. This guy, again, was a provider. He came into the situation as if he was just going to make our lives better, fix things. And he did. He did some good stuff. Let me say this. He taught us how to iron our clothes. We were young. At first, my mother would do those things. She would iron our clothes for us, get us ready for school and things like that. When Mr. G came into the situation, he taught us how to iron clothes. He taught us how to do all of these little things, right? He was more of a disciplinarian figure. All right. He actually moved us into our first house. For our entire childhood up until that point, fourth or fifth grade for me, we always lived in apartments. We never lived in a house. He moved us into a house. We had a backyard. He bought us a dog. He did all of these things to create this like family dynamic, this mother and father, dog, kids, house life. He did all those things, right? But again, controlling, demanding, needing things to be a certain way. And my mom by nature is rebellious because she is very strong. She is very smart. She is very powerful. And so though she wanted someone to be that provider, to be that masculine figure, she wasn't necessarily soft enough or gentle enough at the time to welcome a healthy version of that into her life. So you got this strong woman and this strong man who wants to control this woman. Oh my God, let me tell you. That's who he was. Mr. G, he wanted to tame this lioness. He wanted to tame my mother. And you can't tame a bad woman like that. When I say bad, I'm meaning good, right? Not that way. You can't tame her with control. My mother needed to be loved on a very deep and sacred level. And he wanted to control her by force. So he gets us the house and the dog and the ideal life, right? And once he secludes us, because abusers do that, they will seclude you. They're going to move you to another side of town. You're not going to live where your family lives anymore. And that's what he did. He moved us to a complete other side of town, away from friends, away from family. He secluded us. And this was so terrible, y'all, because the house that he moved us in was his mother's old house, right? Like his mother had passed away and left him a house, and that's the house he moved us into, y'all. This house had rat infestation. It was absolutely terrible. I remember me and my brothers, we would be after school, we would be sitting down at the table doing our homework. And next thing you know, like a rat will run across our feet. And we're jumping, screaming, jumping on top of the table. Absolutely terrible. Traumatic. That was traumatic on top of him being abusive. And so he would get mad when my mother would not just oblige to whatever he was saying. And let me tell y'all, multiple times my mom tried to leave. Multiple times my mom tried to leave. So when you're asking yourself, well, why don't people in these abusive relationships, why don't they just leave? It's not that simple. It's not that simple, because a lot of times people in abusive relationships have become codependent on their abuser. And so this man was paying, or that house that we were living in was actually paid off, right? Old little house. It was paid off. And my mother was not prepared to move her and her 3 children into a new place, right? So it took time. And I remember the very last time, crazy. My mom gets us in the car. This was such an amazing thing. My mom gets us in the car. She was driving a Ford Expedition at the time. She gets us in the car. We're about to leave. He runs out of the house with a gas can. A gas can, y'all. And he's standing in front of the car. My mom's about to drive off. He's standing in front of the car with the gas can. And he's like, I'm about to pour this gas on myself. He's literally telling us that he's about to pour gas on himself and set himself on fire. So abusers will do that as well, right? They will harm themselves to get you to stay. They will play on that empathy, right? Or that compassion, or that I don't want to see you hurt even though you've been hurting me type energy. And so that was the last straw. And I told, when that happened, my mama was just like, enough is enough. If you hurt yourself, you hurt yourself. It is what it is. We gotta go. I'm getting my kids out of the situation. Thank you, mama. Man, I love my mama so much. Uh, it's hard. So my mom, um, yeah, my mom was just like, if you're gonna do it, do it. Whatever. I'm no longer sacrificing herself and her kids for whatever you got going on. But it was attachment. Peace Rising Vibes. Thank for the donation. And listen how beautiful that is. You donated at 10:07 a.m. and 10:07 is my birthday. So that's so sweet. That's awesome. Thank you. I just have so much compassion for people in those situations because I seen my mother go through the trenches of it, fighting, up against the wall, you know. So she moved us out. We moved to an apartment, a random apartment. He couldn't know where we lived. And abusers are manipulative because I told y'all he got us a dog and we love this dog. Our dog name was Sandy. She was a pit bull and she was like one of the little loves of our lives. We loved her so much. When it was time for us to leave, my mother didn't have the time to go and get that dog and put the dog in the car. My mom was like, we got to go. This dog got to stay for now. And my mother had all plans and intentions to get the dog back. But guess what his ass did? He sells the dog. He gives her to some Mexicans, and the Mexicans end up fighting her. She ended up becoming a fighting dog. And so abusive people will take the things that you love and will use them against you. So he takes the dog and he says, yeah, the dog ran away. No, you gave the dog away. And so because my mother loved us so much, on random days, so beautiful, on random days, she would drive around that old neighborhood where we lived in and she would look for the dog. She would look for it because she's like, I'm trying to find their dog. They love this dog. One day she found the dog. One day she found her. And the beautiful thing about dogs is they hold on to memory. They don't forget. They know who you are. So she's like, Sandy, because it looks like our dog, and it's our dog. We come home from school and our dog is sitting on the couch in this apartment that we had to move away into. Our dog is sitting on the couch. We come in the house and she just starts going crazy, wagging her tail. And she's like, oh my God, And when we looked at her, she had bite marks all on her body. She had experienced trauma. But she still loved us and we loved her. And even after that abuse, she lived for so many years after, which was such a blessing. But when I reflect on that specific time in my life, I realized that my mother was attached to the need of having a strong masculine presence because she didn't receive that as a kid. Though she knew her father, she had a relationship with her father wasn't who she needed him to be. And so she was seeking and searching for that father figure, for that father role. And because she had that void, she would unconsciously become attached to people who would exploit that need. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to that whenever, and I'm telling y'all this stuff, not just surrounding domestic violence, emotional abuse, mental abuse, because these dynamics play out even in jobs. These dynamics play out in your boss. These dynamics play out with your friends. You know something is an attachment when there is unhealthy engagements that do not get reconciled. Okay? We all have qualities, trauma responses, triggers that can be abusive. I know for me, I've had to learn to work on being passive aggressive, to work on not being passive aggressive, I should say. Because I saw my mom in these openly aggressive situations, I chose to like do the opposite. I chose, well, I'm not going to be so aggressive physically. I'm going to try to be passive when I have an issue with something. And that was still abusive because it felt like I was maybe pitying the other person or even talking down to the other person, right? The passive aggressiveness that I would communicate with was triggering to people. And so it was abusive. I wasn't doing it on purpose. But when it was brought to my attention, because I actually live in love, I had to change those things. And so if you are in a relationship with anybody and they're not changing the behaviors that you feel like are abusing you, it's an attachment, it's not true love. Because true love, in true love, you are willing to extend yourself, right? To nurture one's spiritual growth. And so, what are the steps? Let's look at this. Okay. What steps should one take to heal spiritually, emotionally after a toxic relationship? What are those steps, right? Well, those steps are a few things. One, you have to acknowledge that you've been doing the best you can. I remember one night I had came home from a club. I was in high school. I had came home from like a teenage party, and my mother is sitting on the steps in the dark in our living room. So my mother is so tenacious, and I got a little bit emotional. A few moments ago. I don't know if you caught it. If you caught it, we here. I got a little bit emotional a little while ago, having so much gratitude for my mother based off of what we went through. I don't know how she made it through. I can only imagine. But my mother went from being an abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship to freedom. She ended up buying a house on her own. What? Single mother of 3 buying a house by herself. She's a superstar. And when I talk about things like this, I always call her on the phone and I just say thank you, because she showed me resiliency, she showed me respect for self, she showed me that there's nothing that we can't overcome. So she ends up buying a house by herself for her and her 3 kids, right? Each of us had our own rooms. At first, y'all, we were sharing rooms, right? Me and my brothers, we would share a room. And then there was a space and time where each of us had our own rooms, but she was renting the rooms. She was renting that house. So she ended up purchasing a house where each of us had our own rooms. And I remember the process, right? Because it was just us and my mother. We would get in the car and we would go look at neighborhoods and we would look at houses and say, ooh, I like that. I remember there was just this one house that we thought we were going to get, which I'm grateful to God that it did not work out, because that house ended up becoming so hood. That neighborhood where we were about to buy that house ended up becoming so hood and so toxic. I was like, oh my God, God was protecting us because we did not need to be in that environment, because we had already came from abusive situations, fighting, whatever. And my family and I, we don't take no shit. And so if the girl next door got beef, we probably gonna be outside fighting. I mean, I just told y'all we grew up in abusive environments. If homeboy down the street got an issue, my brothers is gonna be boxing it out. Like that's just how we grew up, right? That's what we grew up seeing. That was our norm. Fighting was not uncommon for us. And I remember this house. My mother took us to see it. She's like, y'all, this is the house. This is where where we're gonna be moving into. But God was protecting us, right? God was protecting us because I remember we would go into the house and walk through it because it was being built. Go through the house, walk through it. Oh my God, this is gonna be the kitchen. This is gonna be your room. That whole thing. And we would leave the house. We feel so happy. I remember my mom received a phone call from the real estate agent saying, "Hey, the house fell through. A pipe burst. A pipe had burst in the house, totally ruined the house. They would have to do it all over again." And my mom was sad about that. She was disappointed about that because my mom is a very faith-filled woman. She was like, all right, I guess something better, something else is going to come into play. So we were heartbroken by that, but my mom, kept us in our faith and kept us strong and knowing that a better situation would come. And a better situation did come. We ended up moving into a house in the neighborhood directly across the street from my best friend. And our neighbors were all Asians. So it was no drama. It was no you getting into a fist fight with your neighbor, right? That was not happening. But I remember one day coming home to that house at night, and my mom is sitting on the stairs in the middle of the night, right? And she only got like one light on. Like, this is looking like some waiting to exhale type shit, right? This is looking like some Black woman Lifetime movie network stuff, if you know what I mean. I don't know where my brothers were, but this was an intimate moment for me and my mother. So I come home and she's sitting on the stairs and she's crying. Never see my mama cry. She does not cry. She only cries if it's like something extreme because she's strong. She's experienced a lot. She's been fighting men and fighting all her life. So she's sitting on the stairs and I'm like, Mom, what's wrong? And she says to me, you know what? I'm gonna stop dating. I don't want to be in no relationship. She said, only man I want in my life is God right now. And I didn't know why she was telling me that. And now, as I'm an adult and I reflect on that, now I get it. But she had told me that she's like, I'm done dating. I don't want no relationships. Like God is just telling me that I just got to let go of all of this. And she had said she wasn't going to date again until me and my brothers were all out of the house, until we were in college, away, living our lives. And she did that. Any man she was talking to, she even had a man who was a nerdy man at the time who wasn't physically abusive, right? The guy she was dating at the time, I'm going to call him Mr. L. Mind you, y'all, I'm speaking to you over the span of 12, 15 years, right? Elementary to high school. To the end of my high school career, actually. We didn't move into that house until I was a junior, about to become a senior in high school. So this is many, many years. But she had just got to a point to where she was just like, I'm done dating. I'm going to focus on my relationship with God, and I'm going to be dedicated to that relationship until y'all get out the house. And my mother is such a blessed and fortunate woman because all of us, all of her children, though we experienced a lot of abuse, held hostage, man about to set himself on fire, right? Though we saw all of that, we all are still here. And not only are we still here, but we are introspective, right? We look at ourselves and we say, okay, how are we showing up in life? In what ways do we need to grow? How do we aren't settling for bare minimum in any area of our lives. We're putting our best foot forward. We're putting forth the effort. We're going for it, me and my brothers. But when we graduated, guess what happened? My mom found the love of her life. When we left that house, right? When she spent that 2 years focusing on herself, she opened herself up to receive sacred love. And now they've been married now for like 12, 13 years, I want to say. In fact, they're about to have an anniversary next month, my mom and her husband. So when I reflect on how do you heal after experiencing so much drama, the first thing is you got to cut anything and anyone off that reminds you of that abuse, that reminds you of that trauma, that continue to trigger you, cut them off. Okay. The first thing my mother did, though, was acknowledge that she had been doing the best that she could with her own knowledge, and now she needs to rely on God. Now she needs the divine, now she needs the most high to come through and intercede, because the men she was choosing, right? The relationships she was choosing from her flesh. She was choosing from the void. She was choosing from a space of inadequacy and not feeling like she was enough within herself on her own. Right? That's what she was choosing from. So she had to acknowledge, I've done the best that I can with what I got. Now I got to sit back and let God do it. Right? Then she had to become aware that she had a deep wound and a deep want. And the deep wound was not feeling valued just for who she was as she is. Like a lot of these men that my mother were dating at the time, they were men who did not feel strong as a man. And so unconsciously, they wanted to break her. Oh, they wanted to tame her, break her, calm her down because she's such a bright and vibrant light. They were insecure, little, small men. So she had to become aware that she wanted to be respected and loved for who she was. She wanted somebody that could nurture her power, that could love her power and add to her power. She had to become aware of that. And then she had to start seeking healing wisdom and spiritual insight. So my mother started going to church more. She started reading her Bible more. She started connecting with more spiritual women, right? On purpose. She started to literally, I remember moments of my mother just being in prayer, just being in meditation, just being quiet. When we're going through a healing journey, a healing process, we got to get quiet so we can hear the voice of God. And we have to start seeking, searching, and knocking on the door of spiritual wisdom. Okay? You got to let go of people that remind you of your trauma. My mama cut everybody off. All her little friends that always wanted to go to the club and all her little friends that was toxic, cut them off. Cut them off. I'm 100% sure that Cassie in this situation with Diddy, she had to stop going to the parties. Don't go to the award show, right? Don't hang or be with anybody that reminds you of this toxic, unhealthy, demonic, sadistic man. Because when you're around these people, you're re-triggered and re-triggered and re-triggered. And if you keep getting re-triggered, you can't move forward because you're still in the past. Then you got to apply self-love and self-care, self-love and self-care. I am so happy that Cassie is getting her just due. Even though there's no price to pay for that level of abuse. But I'm glad she went for it. I'm glad she said, I need that bad. You gonna pay. I'm glad she went for it. I mean, there's no price. There's no price for that level of abuse, but I'm glad she got something out of something that can carry her children, her children's children. If she does it right, if she manages it right, she multiplies that money right, she can set up generations to come. And that's a blessing. Okay. But we got to apply self-love and self-care. We got to apply certain principles and practices that will help us to adjust our personality. See, my mother's personality changed. Her person in that 2 years of her not, engaging with certain people that reminded her of who she used to be, in that 2 years, her complete personality changed. And because her personality changed, she was able to welcome in a healthy love. Now my mother is soft. Now she's gentle. She's not as demanding. She's not as controlling, because she used to be controlling. But the reason she had to be controlling of us, because she didn't want us to be in the same situation she was in. Okay? Her personality changed, which made way for her to just be nurtured, right? She became softer, which made her softer on us. And it's just been this full domino effect of just wonderfulness. Mad Titan, peace, Jock. Thank you for the donation, brother. I appreciate that. Love is the highest virtue of all. And we hear love is patient, love is kind, love, perfect love, cast out all fear. So I just want to say, keep coming back to self-love. And self-love being the love of the divine, the love of God, right? Keep coming back to that. Keep coming back to that care, to that affection, to that recognition, to that respect. If those things are not action-based, meaning what you do, it ain't love, y'all. It ain't love. I don't care who it is. Even your kids, even your children. If your children are not respecting your word as a parent and they're not doing it through their actions, that ain't love. And we got to adjust that. Listen, y'all, your girl I was featured in a magazine. I want to share it with y'all because I want y'all to go in and read it because it's so good. Like, and I didn't even tell y'all who I am. I know some of y'all already know me, but for the people who don't, y'all, I am Desiree D-Ray, spiritual healing coach, and I help women overcome their trauma. I help women remember who the hell they are. I help women reinvigorate their spirits, get back into their purpose, get into their power. That is what I do. That is what I love. That is what I've been graced to do. I want to say that because I have not said that in this whole video, and I wanted to make sure that I told y'all who I am. And I'm gonna post this link because I want y'all to go and read this article, because I answered these questions from my heart, and I want y'all to see it. So listen, here's something that I want y'all to do. For anybody that has ever experienced any form of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, verbal, financial, any form of abuse, something that I want y'all to do. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror. And I want you to ask the Most High, ask God, ask the divine to reveal to you who you really are. I want you to look into your own eyes. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. So when you are in the mirror and you are looking at your own eyes, you are looking at the depths, at the core of who you really are. Okay? And as you do that, God is going to start to show you things, say certain things to you. Certain words are going to start coming up inside of you. And those are the things that I want you to hold on to. I want you to ask yourself, God, if I am love, if I am light, if I am truth, if I am these things, what do I need to let go of to live as that? Thank you, Jane Muhammad, for the donation. I appreciate it. Who do I need to let go of? What do I need to let go of? Because there are some ways that we are abusing ourselves with addictive behaviors, addictive thoughts, not showing up in our power, not shining our light, not acting on the divine guidance that we've received. This is self-abuse. So God, show me who I am really. What is the type of love that I am meant to live? In what ways have I been attached to people? What voids have I been seeking to fill through anything and everything outside of me? What have I idolized? What things, what have I made money my God? Have I made relationships my God? Have I made a gift or a talent my God instead of the one true God that actually dwells inside of me? If there is any idealistic, IDOL, thoughts, beliefs that I've been having, reveal those things to me so that I may sever that connection. Because when we have these idols, these false gods, this false worship of money, of attention, of relationship, of a gift or a talent, then we will place value into those things over our own intrinsic value. And when we value those things more than we value the truth of who we are, we open ourselves up to be abused and manipulated by people who has those things. I want you to know you are whole as you are for who you are. You and God are one, and everything that you need dwells inside of you. If there is something that you are wanting to experience, if there's something that you are wanting to overcome, you have the divine sovereignty to manifest that from within. Anything that you desire will come to you through the lens of self-love. Your experiences in this life should reflect love. If it does not come, if it is not coming through these things, care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, trust, as well as honest and open communication in action, more than likely it is not love. Okay? Before I go, are there any questions? I would love to answer some questions that you all may have pertaining this topic. I'm grateful that Cassie has been set free. I know that it is a process that she will have to continue to overcome because she's having to relive those experiences. She's having to relive those experiences. So I know it's going to be a process for her. But I send her love. I send anybody that has ever been in a situation like that love. Hell, I had to send love to me and my brothers and my mother for the experiences that we've had. Yeah, we got to have compassion and understanding. And we have to call out these deviant forces. Because if you don't call them out, baby, they will continue to run rampant. They will continue to steal, kill, and destroy. Okay. All righty, y'all. I love y'all. Go and read that blog. I'm going to post the blog in the comments of this video. Go and read it. I think it will definitely increase you all. It will definitely increase you if you read it. It'll definitely touch your heart. And stay on the lookout for more blogs and written posts. That's something that I'm going to start doing more of because people still like to read. Thank you, everybody, for the donations and for the love. You answered quite a bit of my why questions already. Yes, yes, yes. And then also, listen, ladies and gentlemen, because gentlemen experience abuse as well. This is not gender, race specific, none of that. It's not specific to any of that. So I would also say, book a call with me. Book a call with me if you need support. I'm here for it. This is my life calling. This is my purpose. This is what I've been graced and gifted, gifted. I don't know how to say it. This is what I've been graced by God to do. So I'm here to support you. I am here to support you. I'm here to uplift you. So book a call, book a complimentary call. Well, it's not a complimentary call anymore. Book a connection call or a coaching call or a consultation, anything that serves you right now. Let me answer this question. To receive these traits, don't you have to display them as well? To receive these traits, don't you have to display them as well? Yes and no. Yes and no. It doesn't mean that you've embodied it, right? So if a person is physically abusive, it doesn't if a person is being physically abused, it does not mean that they are physically abusive. They may be verbally abusive. They may be emotionally abusive, right? Or they may be neither. Let me tell y'all how God works. A person may not be abusive in any way, shape, or form. They may have experienced it in their past, whether it's a past life or a childhood experience. And because they have experienced it, they've shaped a certain perspective around abuse or around any trait, right? And because they've shaped a certain belief system around it, oftentimes we ask the divine to have us experience it again so that we can change our perception. A lot of times you're not experiencing something because you're a bad person and you did it to somebody else, so you have to receive it. So you have to be on the other end of it. A lot of times is you shaped a judgment on that situation and now you have to transmute that judgment. It goes back to what I was saying with my mother. My mother is very vocal. Well, she's changed a lot now, but at first she was very vocal, very aggressive. She would curse a man out. She would annihilate a man verbally. That does not mean that she deserved to be physically harmed, though. But in my immature mind, I thought, okay, maybe I won't be so loud. Maybe I won't be so aggressive as my mother. Maybe I'll be passive and that will save me from experiencing abuse of any form. And so I would be passive aggressive. I would be slick with my tongue. Not necessarily yelling, not necessarily cursing you out, but I would be very curated with my words where I could still jab you, stab you. It did not save me from fights and arguments with people. So what I had to learn was I perceived my mother incorrectly. So spirit had me see, and I experienced my own form of abuse. So spirit helped me to see, oh, I was looking at this all wrong. In my child mind, I thought my mother was doing something wrong. And yes, I don't want to be aggressive with my words. Yes, I still want to speak kind because love is kind. Love is patient. I still want to aim for that, right? But I just had to know and understand. I had to change how I perceived what happened with my mother and all of the relationships that she was in that led to abuse. I had to know and understand that if a person is aggressive, they're just aggressive. That's what their trauma has trained them to be. Okay. So no, not all the time is what we experience we are. Sometimes we are experiencing it so that we can transform how we perceive it, which is really a gift from God, because your judgments create your reality. And if you can change your judgment, you can change your reality. You know who's a great teacher on that topic, which is so juicy. And I teach this in womb alchemy too. But a great teacher of that topic is Jewel Pookrum. Jewel Pookrum. She talks about it from the perspective of, yes, if you do a thing, if you do a thing in a past life, you will re-experience that thing. So yes, there's some truth there. But at the same time, if you can shapeshift your brain, your mind to see it differently, then you will receive a different result. Love that question. I appreciate that question. All righty. And thank you, Keon. I see you just sent the donation. I appreciate that love, y'all. I appreciate y'all. All right. I'll be seeing y'all. What's tomorrow? Friday? I'll see y'all in the book club on Saturday. Shout out to all the Patreon members. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you need support, not just with abuse, but just spiritual, emotional healing, transformation, etc., etc., hit the link in the bio, and I'll talk to y'all then. Peace and love.